So you mentioned too, and I had a question about this because I was positive it has come up because I have a Facebook and I've seen what people say when like the BET awards come up and they're like, well, where's the white entertainment awards and that sort of thing. Did you, when creating Black Non-Believers, and it sounds like the answer is already yes, but I'd love for you to expound on it, have that reaction of like, why are you making this? That's racist or that's separatist or whatever.
The first time I was invited to do a podcast was when I seriously encountered that.
Okay.
But the premise for starting Black Non-Believers, and that unfortunately unfortunately reconfirmed why we had to do it. Right. But also the point was that, okay, well, we didn't see that many Black people in person at these atheist events. Right. And some of the experiences that I had heard about from other Black atheists when they attended predominantly white meetups, where I actually got a chance to experience that. And so, but it was also to show that, okay, well, it was also to prove that, we know there were more of us out here. The Black community isn't totally defined by the religious. So it wasn't we knew we had a job to do.
Sure.
We had to bring out more of us. So it being racist didn't even come up because we're like, look, we're trying to reach other Black folks and really trying to show the Black community that we're here. And yes, the secular community as well. Sure. But we weren't separating ourselves, which was why that came as such a shock. Right. Because we actually we availed ourselves to the secular community when we were formed. So, and then that's when we started discussing our experiences, discussing when it comes to issues regarding race and race perceptions and racial justice. People needed to hear that. Right. And people needed to know to adjust, their attitudes as well as their actions. Yeah. So I'm like, if we were separating ourselves, we wouldn't bother engaging the community. Right. So, so that was a bit odd. But then, I think when you see a group that specifically is not exclusively but specifically trying to target a specific demographic, there are people who are, uncomfortable with that. And there are things that they never had to think about before. And so over time, I began to understand that a bit more, even though I don't have to accommodate it. Right. But I just remember like, wow, this wasn't being done to try to spite anyone. It was because there was a need for it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's funny how you see that across the board, where a traditionally marginalized group basically just says, hey, we're here. We want to support each other and be a part of the broader thing. I see it a lot on the pride end of the LGBT community. And it's like, well, where's the straight pride parade? The straight pride parade was the last 10,000 years. Sorry if you missed it.
That's also going on in the Black community too, the straight Black pride thing. Right. And it's like, there are quite a few, there is quite a bit of homophobia. Right. Particularly amongst the Black conscious community. I see. The ones the ones I grew up around. They're saying that it's, they're trying to tout that it's scientifically or historically not, Blacks, like homosexuality was forced on Black folks by Europeans, which is utterly, yes.
I've never heard such a thing. My goodness.
We have, and that's also another thing. Wow. We have heard that stuff. Right. And it does make a difference which community you're coming from and the things you hear. And that's what the broader secular community needs to understand. Absolutely. That there are different encounters for different communities. Right. And so we can't pretend that everyone's experience is the same. That is disingenuous.
And it's also, it's disingenuous, and it's, can I just say downright bitchy? It's like a level of, it's like a subconscious, like, we've decided what the baseline experience is, assimilate or go somewhere else. Right. Yeah. That's gross. Borderline, downright bitchy. That's
it's like if you
quote of the day.
Yeah, it's like Yes.
Yeah. That's, oh my so, and it's so funny. More than any guest I've had so far, you are so good at knowing what questions I'm going to ask.
Okay.
Because you had kind of mentioned about like that first experience, or that you had heard other people's experiences and then experienced yourself going to the first predominantly white meeting. I actually had this with my friend Eric, who is a black atheist. We were talking about this recently, and he was talking about like, he went excited for this first meeting, and then he left feeling like, oh, good, another group that wants to make me a token, because he felt like he spent the 2 hours just telling a group of white guys that, no, I agree, you're not racist.
Yeah.
Is that becoming typical? And if so, how do we stop that? Because that's so patronizing, it seems to me.
It is. There are a lot of folks who are, and I think I tend to be more patient when it comes to discussing these. I tend to give a lot of how to's and do's and don'ts. Yes, you find that there are, white folks there, when they see a black person, they will just automatically assume they start getting very defensive. And it's like they're looking to ease their comfort, or what what we call white tears.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
all of a sudden it becomes more about their feelings more than the person that they're engaging with.
Right.
And it's like that people, folks need to really reevaluate the questions that they ask.
Sure.
And it isn't always up to us to provide all of the answers that they're looking for. Like,
yes.
It is not always my job to give a lesson in Black history and Black atheism.
Right.
Some of that stuff, ideally, everyone should know.
I was just gonna say, there's so much parallel to right now. So I'm very active with a large group of transgender friends who are activists. And it's like, we are so tired of hearing these same 20 questions. You got Google, go look at Google. And so I get that, like, don't expect us to answer these there's some work you got to do yourself. Don't wait. Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's so, it makes me cringe on the inside to yeah. And I mean, certainly I feel, tell me if any of my questions have been stupid so far. Don't indulge me.
No, you've been fine.
Okay,
I don't like to generalize. It's been one of the great things about engaging the community is seeing the different folks who really are passionate and who really do care about the improvement and betterment of all atheists, which is pretty awesome. Sure. And also the white folks who will check their fellow white folks. That's awesome too.
Yeah.
So,
and in no way am I trying to virtue signal or be one of those guys. Yeah, come on, other white folks. But it seems to me like the answer to the question about Eric's experience, for example, is a lot of like, first of all, it's like the kid who shows up to driver's ed and his first time driving is with that instructor. Like, you should have been doing this at home with your parents. Do a little bit of the work yourself and know when to listen instead of talking all the time.
Yes, absolutely. That is another huge thing too.